It's Monday, March 17th, 2025. Happy St. Patrick's Day. You know, St. Patrick's Day, everyone's a little Irish, except the Scottish. We're still Scottish. So yesterday, I worked ahead a little bit in the shop, and forgive me for not videoing any of this. I wasn't feeling really very well, and I thought I just want to get some production done. So what I did was I took these nice pieces of pine that I had cut up, and I ran a groove through each one. It's 3/8 wide and 7/16 deep, and then I ran a 7/16 rabbet joint on the end, or rabbet on the end to make a rabbet joint. So that's what that's going to look like, and the plywood fits right into that groove in the boards. So that's pretty simple. You know, these bee escapes, I think I've been putting them off. I've been busy in the shop the last number of years, but I've been putting them off because they're a little fussy, fiddly. This kind of thing, and then the little triangle, cutting all the little triangle pieces and installing all the little triangle pieces is pretty fiddly, and you'll see when I get to that point. I've got my plywood pieces cut up. Almost half of them are these older pieces of wood. I've cut up some newer ones here. You can see them sitting right here. I've just finished cross-cutting those on the radial arm saw. And so I need to cut a hole in the center of these. Now, the bee escape that I bought one Quebec bee escape so I could reverse engineer it years ago. And as I recall, it had a 2-inch hole in the center. Now, this bit is a 2 3/4-inch bit, and that's a big dollar bit too. Don't drop it. Look at how big, look how long that thing is. It's huge. It's 6-7 inches long, and I'll tell you what that's for. You can buy these little movements at Lee Valley, and the hole you need to drill for that little movement to fit in there nice and snug is that 2 3/4. So that's what that bit's for. But I'm using it for bee escapes now. And just a word on that, I was going to look that up before I did the video. I'll put a caption here what that thing costs. It's very expensive. I think probably on the order of $75 or more. And people will often gasp when I say things like that. Blades for the saw, you know, this dado blade, that's a couple $100. Bits and things. Invest in proper quality cutting surfaces, whether it's blades or bits or anything else, knives, because that's really where the rubber hits the road. You can have a really, you know, a drill that's not great, like this drill press. That's a cheap drill press. It's a 20-inch drill press. It's a big guy, but it's a cheap one. It's not a high quality drill press at all. But for what I'm doing, just beekeeping equipment, it's more than good enough. But I want to put, you know, probably I paid 25% as much for this bit as I paid for that drill press. Okay, this is where you want to put your investment. High quality cutting surfaces, because that'll make your project turn out nice, and it'll make your life a whole lot less swear words in your life. So I'm going to stack up over there and we'll get cutting some of these holes. I'll usually refer to this as a Forstner bit. However, manufacturers and retailers often call it a sawtooth bit. And this is why. The sawtooth moniker, I don't think that's important though. To me, this is a Forstner bit because this describes really what it is. It describes it as differentiated from something like a hole saw. So it cuts a very accurately sized hole, and it has big chippers like a planer or something here to peel out the material. A hole saw, I don't like hole saws for 2 reasons. Well, I'm going to say 3. Hole saws don't cut an accurately sized hole. Pretty accurate, but not as accurate as these. For this application, it's not important, but when I'm drilling feed holes in covers, I want those to be very accurate so that the feed plug will actually stick in the hole. A hole saw, when you drill a hole, you have a disc left over, a puck that's cut out of the wood. You have to pry that out of the hole saw every time. It's a bother. Plus, the third reason is my Forstner bit makes all kinds of nice smoker fuel for me to use in the summer. So that's why I like Forstner bits. Hole saws are way cheaper than Forstner bits, but it's whatever you want to go for, right? 99% of what I drill with this drill press are covers. And so I've got this jig here, and these are very similar to covers in size, but they're just a tiny bit smaller. So I've added a 3/8 shim to the sides, that side, this side, just to kind of get it a little closer back to center. It's really the 4 1/2 center is what it's affecting, because this will move. I can just do that by eye. Okay, I should be able to drill that many. We'll see how this goes. It's time to tighten the belt, but that's pretty fussy procedure, so I kind of put up with it. All right, so that's the result I'm looking for. catch up a little bit on what I was doing for the grooves. I set up a 3/8 wide dado blade here, and I have a tendency to make these too tight, but it does fit. So I put 3/8 and then a very thin shim to make it a little bit looser, but I should have gone more than that. And then I just ran them through here, and then I employed the miter gauge to set this up to 7/8, and which is max on that. It doesn't even go into the fence, and you can see the result of that here. It's got a little bit of flashing going on here. Not a big deal. So then I just ran these through like that to cut that rabbet joint. So I can put this fence away now. I'll put this one together just so you can see how this goes. Now these long pieces are the same length as the plywood, right? So that just goes right in there. And again, it's a little too snug. I wish I'd have made that a little bit more loose. There's no reason it needs to be quite that tight. So I will glue these when the time comes. Hammering on my table saw. That's not the best idea. See what happens when it's too tight. It splits it. That was cracked anyway, so it's not my fault. It's too tight. It is too tight. I should set the saw up and just run these through again. I think I'm gonna, you know what, I'm gonna run those through again. It'll take me a few minutes, but it'll make my life so much easier. I think that was time well spent. I took 1/32 off of those, 1/32 of an inch, and that means that those slide in there much nicer. You can see a very tiny gap here, which is fine. I'm famous for gluing everything. I don't think that's necessary because these plywood pieces are going to be completely captive. In here, I'll glue the ends of the butt joints here. I'll give you a better look at the business side of this. So this just goes right on here. That's called a dry fit, so that's going to fit just fine. I'll put a little bit of glue. I'm going to glue this side because I want to glue not only the face, you know, I can put the glue on the face here, but I also want to glue the shoulder here. So by not gluing the plywood, it just makes this process a whole lot more simple. And it saves me glue. And I'm kind of running out of glue. Might have to buy another gallon. This stuff's $90 a gallon, so I don't like to buy too much of it at one time. I often buy 2 gallons at a time, but I didn't have as many orders this year, so I didn't go ahead and buy a ton of glue ahead of time. Okay. That's 1.5 inch staple. Good to remember how long the staples are, because then you have to remember to keep your hands that far from the end of the staple gun. Okay. Oops. Oh, way too much glue. Goodness. Got enough glue for 2 of these. Okay, that's an escape board. That little triangle unit goes on the bottom side here, and these are built with a lot more space than the first ones I built. I couldn't remember what I had done last time. This is about a 1/2 inch set down here. The last time I did 3/4. That's fine. That's not going to hurt anything. And last time I only made this, I think about, was it 3/4 or was it 1 inch high? I just found that I wanted more space to give the bees somewhere to go, because they seem to get very congested. So build them some space here. I know they're going to build comb in here. You just have to not leave these on too long. And another thing is, quite often when I set my escape, I'll pull that up and I'll put a pollen patty on there for the bees, and then set that escape on the hive to do its job. Now, this is going to get set aside until I finish assembling them all. And when I'm done building the triangle part, before I put the screen on, I'm going to take these over to the wax dipper, and I have these wax dipped. I've never had them wax dipped before, so it'll be nice to have them dipped to avoid the weather. Okay, let's do another one. Top and bottom I don't think is really meaningful at all on these. When I'm machining this groove, I can decide which of this is the top and which is the bottom. And how that's relevant is that the top is the honey supers and the bottom is the brood chamber. And one of the dangers with bee escapes is that you're removing the bees from the honey supers, therefore the honey supers will be unguarded for the most part and subject to robbing if there are any cracks or knot holes or anything in honey supers or even in the bee escape. So what I did here, because there's an imperfection here in the material, I put that on the bottom part so that if this is compromised at any point in the future and a bee can get through there, that's on the brood chamber side. They can protect that. That's not a big deal. But if that were to be compromised on the top, then, you know, there may be no bees or very few bees above the bee escape to protect the honey, so that would be a problem. So I've tried to maintain integrity that way. Okay, let's stop talking and get another one of these put together. They just kind of slide together like that now. That's nice. Just some little shavings inside the groove there. All right. This end piece will be the more difficult one to put on because if the plywood is going to warp, it's going to be this direction. Yeah, they slide together much more nicely now. Theoretically, that plywood could slide, but it is captured in there quite nicely. So here again, I've got a knot that I put on the bottom. There's a little bit of one here, but that's not too much of a threat, I don't think. Well, that goes pretty fast. So you can see what I'm going to be doing today. Thanks for watching. It's Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. And welcome back to the shop. Still plugging away at these bee escapes. And I'm actually doing pretty good. Yesterday, there's a whole pile of them here. And the rest are here. So we're at 44 in all. I've got them assembled as far as the surround and the plywood goes, but I need to make the triangles inside. And I've done, I don't know, I've done 2 or 3. So this is what that looks like. Okay. And again, the bees will come down. This is the bottom side, so the bees will come down and find their way out. But when they try to get back up in there, if they head in this way, this space is slightly bigger than this one. I don't know exactly what makes the difference with these things, but this is 3/8, this is about a 1/2 inch. So I'm thinking that when they come up this way, they've got 3 choices. You know, it's wider and easier going here, not as easy going here, narrower. So these actually work really well. And they're fiddly. I'll show you what I'm doing to put these together. By the way, I got my new Rode mic. This is actually the old one. This is the new one, but you can't see the difference. I have to mark this one to make sure I don't take it somewhere, because it only runs for about 5 minutes and then doesn't run anymore. Another thing I noticed, and it has more to do probably with the programming or maybe just the chipset that's inside it. When I push the button, this takes about 5 seconds to boot up and come on. So I'm going to go click, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can see it come on. I'll turn it off, and then I'll turn this one on. Click, 2, 3, see, it comes on right away. That's pretty cool. That's nice, because it's a little annoying to, you know, it's 5 seconds, but still, this one comes on right away. So that's nice. And I had to pair it to the receiver, which was pretty easy. I had to look it up, but it's pretty easy. There's just a pairing button on the receiver. There's one button on this right there. So anyway, very happy with that. It showed up fairly good time. Although they said they were going to send me tracking information. I didn't get any tracking. I don't know how that went sideways, but here's another crazy thing. He initiated this by saying, give me your tracking information. And so, or no, give me your shipping information, he said. And so I did. I gave him my box number at the post office because my mail comes in town here. And, you know, it took a day or so. And then he says, well, I can't use the post office box. You have to give me your home address. So I gave him my home address. So thinking, well, they're going to drive it to my door here, right? Which happens. Well, I went to the post office yesterday, and there's my package sitting in the post office. I do not know why the world just ignores little nuanced differences between rural deliveries and city deliveries. They just don't. People ask me all the time, what's your home address? I'll give it to them. They say, what's your postal code? And I say, I don't have a postal code because I don't get my mail at home. I don't. I'll give you my postal code, and then you'll complain about that because it's the postal code of the post office in town. And you'll say, that's no good because, you know, I need your home address. Well, this is my home address, but I don't have a postal code because I don't get mail here. Anyway, it's just one of those goofy things. They should sort that out because rural people order a lot of stuff online because we can't go to the store very easily. So we order stuff. All right, enough of my ranting. I'll show you how I put these triangle things together, and they are fiddly. And this is why I avoid, I think, making bee escapes, because they're fiddly. I'm going to demonstrate 2 ways that I do this. One way that I've always done it, and then a way that a friend online just told me that he does it, and it's a really good way. So what I've been doing is taking the long pieces. I'll just put those 3 there. We'll start by putting a little bit of glue here. Don't need tons. And sort of line this up, sort of kind of centered. It's not that important. I'm going to put my ear protection on. Okay. Now once that's on, I've got these 3 little setup blocks, which are 3/4, they're 3/8 of an inch wide and a couple inches long. It doesn't matter how long they are. And so what I can do with these is I can set the triangles up. Now I'm trying to make sure the tips are sort of right across from each other. Like the tips of these are sort of even. So that looks pretty good, right? That's a good little triangle thing. So we'll just tack that down right where it is. And this one likewise. And so these, likewise, will go like this. Now this space, these shims are all half inch high, right? So this space is just a little more than that, right? It's just a loose half inch. So we're going to do exactly the same thing like this, right? So that's pretty much what we need right there. And we can just tack it down. A little bit of stickum juice. So slide it back and forth until it's parallel here. And then we'll secure the other 2. Don't need a lot of glue. They're not structural. I just don't want them to shift around on me for any reason. Okay, so that one's done. That's pretty easy. That's pretty easy. And now I'll show you the method that was, well, it was a method that was suggested to me recently by Big Mike. You see Big Mike on some of the live streams. And it's not exactly what he was doing, but it's close. He made himself a triangle. Now, he cut this, he didn't drill this, he cut this triangle, and he drills his holes with a hole saw, so he sticks the blank on here, and then that blank falls in the hole and keeps it nice and centered. So this one, I need to do the outside first. I did have a few pieces left over from the last time I built these escapes. It was years ago. So again, but I've added these spacers to enhance Mike's idea. Okay, now we can take the pattern out and now do the inside. He did make 2 triangles for his, but I don't have a circle to set that in there. If I were able to set that in there, I could use that, kind of like that. But I will just use my setup blocks again and get them in here. This is just to show you different ways. You know, this making that jig thing, that actually took me a while to get it right, and it's not even quite right, I don't think. But if you didn't want to make that jig, you could do it the first way, because all you need is just a little piece of wood. Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and glue that one down. I'm doing both ways. I have to choose which way I like best. I think with that second triangle, this way would be easier. Okay. So there's a couple of ways to achieve the same thing. And of course, I'm going to have those dipped, and then I will put the screens on. But before I do that, I need to make a bunch. I forget how many, but I need to make a bunch of these little triangle parts. So I've got a pile of pieces here, and they're various lengths. Some are not long enough for the long parts, but I can sort of sort them as I go here. My big crosscut sled here, I've tacked pieces on here to help me do these cuts. I'll kind of explain this before I get going. This piece is plenty long for a small piece, but it's not long enough for a large piece. So what happens is, I've got a little mark here, it's a little V shape, is if I can put that there and it reaches the blade way up here, then it's long enough. If I don't, then it's not long enough. Then I can just cut the end of it like that and put it over here. See, these pieces have one end beveled. So all these pieces will end up being small pieces. And the reason I'm not cutting them right away is because I set this up to do this, but I can't get them in here because of this piece. So what I can do with that is, well, I'll show you the long piece. So I can, if I put it up to where the blade is, and it's nice in the sled, I can see where the blade runs, right? So I can set that right there. Then I can see that it's covering up my little V mark here. So that means that's long enough to make a large piece. I'll turn around because there's a knot here. And then I'll cut that, and then it just goes straight over here. I've got a stop block set up here. And then I'll cut that, and I end up with one of those. So that's what I'm doing here. Just do that a few thousand times. Well, there's about 300, there's not quite 300 of these, and they need to be cut in both ends, so you do the math. It's 500 to 600 cuts. I've got a few to start with, so I'll just show you how it goes. So you can see that's real exciting. That's what my day is going to be like today. And then tomorrow I can resume putting these little triangles together. But then I'll be done those. So they can go off to the side then. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I've got a few things on deck. I've got a bunch of stuff I want to do. I've got some things I said I would do for other people. So, no rest for the weary, right? But I'm really glad to have the work this time of year. But we are 2 to 3 weeks away from getting bees out. So, once the bees come out, the time in the shop diminishes dramatically. I might have 30% of the time that I would normally have in the shop. It's nice when the bees come out because then I can use my other building. This place becomes a lot less congested. Then I can store things like that. I can store these when they're done, put them out in the other building, out of the way, and I can get the tractor back inside, which is really nice. I don't like leaving it outdoors, but it's just a fact of life. So, yeah, if you want to see me putting some of these escapes together, this part of them, yesterday we did an impromptu live stream. So I'll put a link to that up here in the top. You can take a look at putting those together if you're so inclined. There's not much to it. It's just fitting them and stapling them and whatnot. That's my day. I appreciate you sharing your day with my day, and thanks for watching. Take care and have fun. It's Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. I'm still plugging away in the shop at these bee escapes. Big stack of them here and a mess more of them here. And I did get a few of these triangle things done yesterday. However, I had to make sure that I didn't just do just that because I had to make the little pieces for the triangles still. And I showed you how I was making those. So I got those done. I got boxes of them, and I'm ready to just assemble these. I've already shown you that, so I'm not going to waste your time on that again. It's mid-afternoon, and I'm just getting started because, partly I'm kind of lazy, but otherwise I had to do a store delivery this morning, which was nice. I always get to, go and visit the stores and say hi to the people, and I'm so very grateful to them for carrying my product, and get to go leave some honey and keep the lights on, like I always say, right? So I need to get to work here at these bee escapes, and I'm gonna just leave you with that update for today because that's all that's happening. I've already showed you that. So really appreciate you watching. Take care and have fun. It's Friday, March 21st, 2025. I think somebody said that it was the first day of spring or something like that today, but it just felt like the worst day of winter today. I was working outside quite a bit, and it's a really nice, sunny, -14 day. Not the warmest, but really not really that cold. But if it's sunny and -14 with no wind, it's a fairly nice day. But there's a stiff north wind out there, just freezes you right to the bone. So I was happy to get inside, do some work inside. I just spent time labeling jars, etc. And you see this big wall here. This is not actually a wall. These are bee escapes. I got all my bee escapes done yesterday. So I'm really happy about that. Now I've got to move them out of the way so I can keep going. I think I'm going to make some more little lids for my little minis there. But so later yesterday, went to the city and did some deliveries. Had a nice evening out with some beekeeper friends. Just was a gathering of people in leadership and influence. Kind of influence is not really the right word, but people who volunteer their time and effort to the leadership community in the beekeeping industry and community in Manitoba. So I know I didn't say that very well, but people like people, well, Ian, Ian serves on our board, and he's certainly helpful with videos he makes, and I'm president of one of the associations, so by that I qualify in that group because of that. So people who volunteer, there's a lot of volunteers there who've given their time selflessly to be in that group. And it's not a defined membership group at all. It's just a bunch of people. We just had a good social time being together, a lot of laughs, a lot of good conversation. So anyway, that's just me rambling on and on. So I'm leaning on something here. I was saying I'm running out of glue. I managed to pick up a couple more gallons of Tight Bond 3. And my supplier that I buy, I actually bought some staples from him too when I was in the city. $63 a gallon. So that's a good price. That's a good price. I was paying, I think 90 at my local hardware store. I'm glad my local hardware store carries it. And I did buy a gallon from them, but I bought these two from the other guy. $63 is a lot less money. And yeah, so I really don't have anything else to report today. So that would mean I don't have anything else to show you for this week because it's Friday. And I'm going to go have a good evening with my wife. And we're going to have some supper and maybe watch a movie or something. And so I hope you have a really great evening too. I hope you had a great week. Have a great weekend. And thanks for watching the videos. I really appreciate that. And we'll catch up again next week. Take care and have fun. It's Tuesday, March 28th. It's not the 28th.